This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients.
So, Brie, I remember this one time I was in a bike race around Tucson and I wasn't paying attention. We were riding down 4th Avenue and there's railroad tracks, like streetcar tracks. And my bike's tire went and wedged in to the railroad tracks and I totally fell down and just skinned my hands, everything.
Ugh.
I had nothing with me, nothing at all. And it's that times where you want a first aid product and you have nothing. And Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. I've used it on my son's mosquito bites, and I wish I would have had it the time I totally scraped up my hands.
Oh, I hear you. Like whenever I go paddleboarding, kayaking, I'm always trying to find something that is like an all-in-one that I can take with me. And Active Skin Repair could be used like that. It can be used to treat cuts, scrapes, burns, sunburns, rashes, and other types of skin damage. It's also safe and non-toxic, which makes it suitable for all skin types, all parts of the body, like eczema and acne-prone skin, all of that.
With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and ingredients so safe and clean they can be used from the youngest member of the family to the oldest, you now have one simple solution for all of your family's skin health needs. Visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order. Use code NOGUILT.
I had this expectation of motherhood and what it would look like. But when I walked through the threshold of my front door, I felt like I was walking into a second full-time job. One that I didn't get paid for, one that I had tons of resentment about, and one that just drained me to the bone. I was so exhausted and depleted.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Brie Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
Dance it out, Brie Tucker, dance it out. As we get into the summer, we're thinking about all the clutter and all the stuff. And I know in our balance community, a lot of moms really, really want to focus on their houses because your home environment has so much to do with your mental health and your energy. I mean, when I see a mess, Brie, I don't want to do anything. I just want to shut the door and go on Netflix and ignore any mess I see.
Oh yeah, and summer is definitely, in my opinion, the next to the holidays in my house, next to Christmas, it is the messiest time of the year because everybody is home, especially out here where we live. We always say summer is almost our winter, we're all stuck indoors. So just everything piles up everywhere and it's just ew.
Indeed.
Ew.
So we have Katy Wells on today. And before I introduce you to her, if you could just take a few seconds, can you do a little favor for us? Because we want everybody to be a no guilt mom. We want to spread this message of doing stuff for yourself is not selfish, that you don't have to give up everything to be a great mom to your kids. And so could you leave us a little review on Apple Podcasts if you get the chance?
Can you trot on over? I'm
Trot
doing a little
on
trot on over to leave a review. Tell us what you think.
Yep. Tell us what you think. It really helps Apple Podcasts show No Guilt Mom Podcast to more people. And the more women that we can impact with this, I think the better our world will be. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And now I want to introduce you to Katy Wells. She is a declutter expert and the podcast host of The Maximized Minimalist. She helps families create homes that are easy to maintain and joyful to live in. And Katy's the proud mom of 2 boys, 7 and 9 years old. And we hope you enjoy our conversation with Katy.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
We're excited to talk to you today about decluttering. I was reading that you're in Asheville, North Carolina.
I am. I've been here for, yeah, gosh, 11, 12 years.
Yeah, my friend Nicole lives there, and she says like it's a totally gorgeous place and wonderful and amazing. And
It's
do you feel
beautiful.
that way
Coming,
about
so
it?
I grew up in the Midwest, Iowa specifically, just either corn or beans around our house at all times, kind of rural. And when my husband and I were like, where are we going to live? I was like, mountains, mountains. I just want some change of scenery. And we absolutely love it here. We're 5 hours from the beach. We're in the mountains. I'm a mountain mama. And it's just there's so much to do.
I can relate. I grew up in the Midwest as well, like in Kansas City. So yeah, like it's just yeah, you're like anything other than like rivers. Like all we ever had was the rivers and that was it, like nothing else. I'm like, I need more scenery than that. So like moving out west to Phoenix and having mountains around, which I never knew there were mountains in Phoenix, but there are and it's beautiful. So that and palm trees. I'm addicted to palm trees now. I can't imagine a life where I don't see palm trees on a regular basis.
You definitely went up to me on the palm trees. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
well,
I love it.
mountains are beautiful as well, for sure. And we don't get the green you have there in North Carolina for sure. So I miss that part.
You have to come visit.
So, Katie, I see you're involved in a summit that my friend Tasha is hosting, Tasha Agruso, and
Yes.
the Beautiful Home, Beautiful Life. And I know, like, with Tasha and her whole decorating journey, and she's very public about this. So I think it's fine to share. But I am one of those people who, like, I feel like it's so much effort for like decluttering or for decorating or and everything like that. And what Tasha says is that she does it as a sense of claiming back control because in her childhood, like she felt like the only place she really had control was in her room. And so I'm curious, like, about in your decluttering journey, like, what made you really interested in focusing in decluttering?
Oh, yeah, that's such a good question. And I think it's something, speaking to why Tasha loves organizing the summit. And I mean, she's amazing. She's become a friend of mine as well. There is something to be said about how our physical environments impact our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our stress levels, just like how we
Mhm.
show up day to day as human beings. I mean, you can feel it when you go to sit down at a clean, tidy, organized, decluttered desk versus a chaotic one. Our brains really crave that organization and order. My declutter journey is unique in the sense that I wasn't born organized. I wasn't Tasha who realized at a very young age, ooh, this is really valuable. I'm going to invest my time here and I'm going to reap the benefits and feel good, at least in this space. I didn't know what decluttering meant until, I had kids of my own. And it wasn't until we had a life-changing car accident back in 2017. My husband, my two sons, who were 2 and 1 at the time, were in the car. All four of us were driving out in Asheville to go enjoy the scenery. And we were hit in a head-on car accident. And I spent the
Oh
next
my God.
8 hours in the hospital, not knowing if my husband was going to survive. And this came at a very challenging point in my life and my motherhood. I was burnt out. I was overwhelmed. I mean, 'tis a season if you have littles. That was certainly part of it.
Yeah.
But I remember before this car accident coming home, I worked outside of the house at the time, and I would just be like, oh, I just want to leave work and go see my babies. I just want to be home and snuggle and read books and do
Yeah.
bath time and all these things, right? I had this expectation of motherhood and what it would look like. But when I walked through the threshold of my front door, I felt like I was walking into a second full time job, one that I didn't get paid for, one that I had tons of resentment about, and one that just like drained me to the bone. I was so exhausted and depleted. And that's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, I was like, oh, if I buy the bins, if I organize, but like nothing I was doing was working. It was all very superficial, surface level. And then I'll never forget after this car accident, finally the doctor came in and he's like, your husband's going to survive. He had a broken neck, shoulder, punctured lung, all the things. So he needed some surgery.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
The doctor comes in finally, and it was like the longest 8 hours of my life. And he goes, he's going to be okay, but it's going to be a long road. So
Mhm.
go home. There's nothing more you can do here. We'll take care of him. And my two girlfriends at the time, my best friends who came to the hospital after the accident, they drove me home. And I opened the front door And it was like this moment of clarity for me where I finally saw my house very objectively for like what it was. Like I open the door, we walk in, and there's stuff everywhere. There's toys scattered on the floor. This isn't unusual at the time, but it was like I
Yeah.
finally saw it, right? There's arts, there's half-eaten crayons. You know how it is. Dishes everywhere, rice stuck on the floor from like
Yeah.
dinner 2 nights
Half-eaten
ago. And
crayons. You're like,
half-eaten
yeah,
crayon. I'm like,
yeah,
thanks,
totally.
2-year-old.
Toddlers, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I could laugh about it now, but in the moment, I just got struck in the gut. It felt like a gut punch. First of all, I was so embarrassed and ashamed because I was the type of person who, if these exact same women would have called me on a normal day and say, "Hey, can I drop by and see the babies? Can I come hang out?" I would have been like, "Give me 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes." And then I'd toss the stuff in the room, try and tidy up, make my home look presentable so she doesn't understand we're actually really slobs, right?
I think that's a very common thought. Like so many
Yes, it
if you're
is.
listening right now and you have ever had that thought, know just how common that is because so many people really
Everyone.
avoid having people over because they feel like they have to clean up and make sure their space is presentable. Are you like that, Brie?
Well, I was going to say, remember my previous life, I was a home visitor for the state as well as like for hospital newborn follow up. And we did home visitation where we would come to people's homes. And we did that so that it was convenient. We'll come to your home. You don't have to make a schedule. You don't have to go anywhere. We just come to you. But the amount of people that would either cancel or delay because they were like, I have to clean my house. You're coming over. And I'm like, dude, I am not judging. You could say that a million times over, but everybody feels that way. And even when I had a newborn follow up, because my son was a preemie, I was like, no, you can't come over. I haven't cleaned. And yeah, we're all like that. Awful.
like
It's
that.
it's like a prison.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
you went from
is,
this
yeah.
moment, Katie, of feeling that you had to clean over before your friends came over to what happened then?
So, obviously, at the end of this horrible day, I mean, I was zapped, and all I wanted to
Yeah.
do was rest, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to go snuggle my babies. I wanted to just go pray over them and just be with them and be present and just like ease into the night. And I recognized very quickly that my home was working against me on so many different levels. There was so much chaos, and it was well beyond the season of life of I was in. There was so much clutter, there was so much excess, there was so much, as they say, the outer is a reflection of the inner, right? Leading up to this point, dealt with so much depression, anxiety. Procrastination was a big one for me and a big reason why I had clutter, which I found out after the fact that procrastination leads to clutter. And the more clutter you accumulate, the more you tend to procrastinate, right? It makes sense because
Yeah.
we get overwhelmed.
It's an avoidance thing too. Like you have so much, you're like, I'm just gonna avoid all those problems.
Avoid,
right
throw
now.
it behind in a drawer, throw it in a room,
Yeah.
move those half-eaten crayons and move about my day. And yeah, I thought, I just can't live this way anymore. And then it went from embarrassment and shame and guilt. Like I felt like I was exposed, right? Because it is vulnerable to let people into your home, but also to let them see your mess. And then all of
Yeah.
that transferred into anger. And this was all within 60 seconds. And I thought, I shouldn't be devoting mental energy to feeling ashamed about my house right now. I need to be
Yeah.
there for my kids. I need to rest. I have all these things I got to do. And I said, never again will I ever feel like clutter is stealing away from everyone and everything that I actually care about in life. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this.
You went through such a moment there because I was actually just talking to a group we had at our retreat about how a lot of times you need to get angry before real change can happen because there has to be like that huge emotional moment where you're actually willing to put in the effort and put in the work to change your ways because it's going to be hard work. And I want to hear exactly what you did right after this break. Hey, all, it is Joanne.
And Brie here.
And we want to tell you about a podcast that you should check out. It's called Understood Explains. This season of the show is hosted by teacher and special education expert Juliana Urturbe, and it's all about how to navigate individual education plans, also known as IEPs.
And in this latest season of Understood Explains, it covers topics like how to tell if your child needs an IEP, and it busts common myths about special education. We actually just listened to the episode, IEPs, Does My Child Need an IEP? And here is what we loved about it.
I loved that it was so digestible. Like, it was such a short episode, and all of the topics, which could be really confusing to parents, were easily explained.
And I loved how they gave great concrete examples because you know how much I love me a good example. They explained what kind of services and supports you could actually see on a child's IEP or individual education plan. And they explained those acronyms. That nothing drives me more crazy than when there's acronyms and I don't get it. I don't know what it stands for. They took the time to explain everything in so much detail and to cover concerns that a lot of families have about special ed services.
To listen to Understood Explains, search for Understood Explains in your podcast app. That's Understood Explains, or just click on the link in our show notes.
Hey there, I'm Debbie Reber, the founder of Tilt Parenting and the author of the book Differently Wired. The mission of Tilt is to change the way neurodivergence, whether that's having a learning disability, having ADHD, being gifted, autistic, or some combination of all of the above, is perceived and experienced so differently wired kids and the parents like us raising them can truly thrive. On the Tilt Parenting podcast, I get to talk with authors, therapists, educators, and parenting experts who are committed to this mission. I ask the questions my listeners are most curious about when it comes to supporting our kids. And in turn, my guests share strategies for challenges, out-of-the-box ideas for navigating school, best practices for therapies, tips for advocating, and so many thoughtful insights on what it really takes to help our kids grow up feeling seen and respected so they can create awesome lives for themselves. I know that raising a differently wired kid can feel overwhelming and isolating, but I promise you, you are not alone, and it can feel so much better. If you're on this parenting journey, come listen to Tilt Parenting. Together, we can shift this paradigm and show up for our exceptional kids with hope, possibility, and joy.
So, Katy, you had a lot of anger about your house at this point, and just this anger about having to deal with it and knowing that, like, you don't want to do this anymore. So, what was your next step after that?
My next step was really what any woman, family, man, like person on the planet tends to do, which is what we've been sold and taught. And that is typically number one, to organize. So I can out organize this problem. That'll be the solution. So like so many people, I went to Target, I got new bins. I headed to Pinterest, which was a thing back then. I don't know if it still is. I was like, I need the checklist. Give me the checklist, and that'll solve my life. That'll solve all these problems. And what I found was I was lucky to get short-term results, but long-term results were out of the question. I remember one weekend, I was like, Andrew, my husband, I was like, just take the kids, take them outside, give me 6 hours. And while my home certainly looked better and everything was labeled and cute, like within 30 minutes of the kids coming in, it was a tornado inside. And I was like, what? I didn't know this actually, like they don't talk about this on these HGTV shows. It just shows this perfect, immaculate after. And I was like, what's happening? What's wrong with me?
Right. You're like, it's got to be me because it doesn't look like the magazine or the show.
It didn't stick. And I think so many of us have been in this position. And then it's like, I'm a failure. There's something wrong with me. Why can't I figure this out? It feels so isolating because we're promised the end result of perfection. If you have these bins, your home will stay perfect. If you do toy rotation, your home, whatever it is, right? People sell it to us in different ways. And I really realized like, this isn't working. It's not working on so many levels. So I had to create my own approach, which took a handful of years and a lot of tears and ups and downs. And really I decided, hey, one of the reasons this isn't working is because these conventional strategies, again, tend to just focus on these really superficial things. And also, to be clear, there is a major difference between organizing our stuff and decluttering. Decluttering is letting go.
Okay.
And so when we have a clutter issue, meaning excess things we, don't need, don't love, don't want, whatever, all the different types of clutter, which we can certainly talk about, we have to let those go in order to make space. The solution isn't to just find adorable, expensive bins from the Container Store and plop it all inside. That is
I can't just throw money at it. I can't just throw money at the problem to make it go away.
You can throw all the money, but your results
Yeah.
never last. They don't
No.
last, right?
And Katie, you make such a good point because everything you're saying there like has definitely gone through my head whenever I
Yeah.
organize. And I was brought so much relief to where you probably heard when Marie Kondo came out after she had kids and she's
Yes.
like, oh, I don't know if this was very
Yes.
reasonable
Realistic.
expectations with children.
100%. If you read her book, which I read, that was one of the first first books I ever bought during this time. I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I need to declutter. Oh, I want to do it. I want to feel what sparks joy. And then I'm going through my wardrobe and I'm like, some tattered nursing bras, but I still wear them. Does this spark joy? I don't know. Like that concept felt so elusive, but also her whole approach was, again, perfectionism. And that runs rampant in our culture.
gosh, yeah.
And it's just
Yep.
so pushed on us mothers and women. And I honestly can't stand it. But it also has bled into these solutions like organizing and decluttering. And I'm like, okay, Katy, okay, first light bulb moment during my declutter journey is that perfection doesn't exist. And the end goal should be to create a home that's easy to tidy, not always tidy. And just that small nuance in language and permission to myself and understanding the new goal that I created, not that's being
Yeah.
forced on me by HGTV, Marie Kondo, whomever, was so
Yeah, so
darn
nice.
liberating.
Pretty.
It was so liberating. And I go, okay, wait a second. That actually means so much. Like, this is epic. It was so exciting.
Let's go back to this again. What you said is
Yes.
like a home that is easy to tidy and not always tidy. So I'm really interested in going into the nuances here between that, like easy and always tidy. What is the first step you recommend for people to get a home like that?
Okay. First step would be to understand the difference between true clutter and what I've coined expected mess. Okay. Expected mess happens from everyday life. If you are a living, breathing human being, you create mess. I know we love to point fingers at our kids and at our partners, but I put my shoes where they don't belong all the time. I have stuff on my desk that I need to put away, right? It's just a part of living. And, to that point, I would like to delve a little bit further because I know expected mess in of itself can be annoying, right? There's always stuff to be done around the house, but understanding that, first of all, it's going to happen no matter who you are, the minimalist, Marie Kondo, anybody, I think is helpful for all of us to remember that, but also to see if we really zoom out and take a 30,000 foot view and look at some of this mess in our home, we can see so much beauty in it. And I know sometimes that can sound really trite when you're like, oh, really? Beauty in like dirty dishes on my counter? But like, I have to remind myself, like, dirty dishes on the kitchen table that need to be cleared was, a side effect of a wonderful opportunity I just had to like hang out with my kids, talk about their school day. They often make forts in my living room. They flip the couch behind me upside down. They move the blankets. They reposition the pillows. And that is a side effect of play, imagination, creativity, and all these different things. And so seeing mess through a new lens also proved to be really fruitful because it does have meaning. And when I understood that mess can actually be really meaningful, it really helped, again, lower that perfectionistic standard of mine and go, no, because trust me, I'm a type A person. When I was like, I'm going to declutter and organize, part of the pendulum kind of wanted to swing so far the other way, where I was so in my kids' business. They'd be like, hey, can we paint or color or draw? And I'd be like, nope, that's going to create mess. No. Right. And then I was like, wait a second, there has to be some happy medium here. And so again, speaking to that permission piece, which I think we all need to give ourselves. So expected mess happens, right? Laundry, dirty dishes, all that's going to be there. That is not the true enemy, right?
I love that idea of an expected mess because what you said, like just the shift of seeing the mess and not feeling that immediately you're failing as a mom or a person because there's a mess in your house. Because again, going back to that perfectionism you were talking about, I think that's what a lot of us feel. Like we see the dirty dishes and we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't follow up on that. I didn't delegate that. I didn't take the time to do that. But really, those are the places you create memories. And it's funny too, because when you said that thing about your kids asking to paint and you're like, no, no, it immediately brought me back to like my childhood where all I wanted to do was cook and like bake in the kitchen. And my dad was the one who wouldn't let me. And he told me, oh, like you can't. You're going to mess up the kitchen. You can't do it. Like it's your mom's kitchen. And I
Yeah.
told my mom this years later, and she turns to my dad. She's like, what were you thinking? Like you didn't let her, like someone else could have helped cook and
Yeah, no
you were
kidding.
the one who,
Who
like,
squashed that? And he's all probably like, I gotta go over it this way. I'll
it was
be
like
back
a
in a
mind,
day or two.
it was like a mind blown thing, but it's so funny because a lot of us like have this fear of mess, like you
Yes.
said. And we prevent these really great things happening in our lives that could serve us in the future just because of this fear of what you call the expected mess. And I love that. I think that's so cool.
And think about even to that example, cooking, that is a life skill, right? I always invite, not always, let me reframe. When the time allows for it, because I never invite my kids into the kitchen to cook with me when it's like, I got 10 minutes to get dinner on the table. That's that's like a recipe for chaos.
That's
literally.
a recipe for, that's a recipe for anger and just get out of my way.
But it's something I feel compelled as a mom to do. And I have lots of conversations with my girlfriends about this. And it's like, sometimes you feel guilt, right? Speaking to your show, you're all about, no, drop the guilt, drop the guilt. And sometimes we feel guilt as parents and caregivers because it's like, well, maybe I should be doing all the things. And
Right.
maybe I should not have my kids do laundry. Maybe I should do all the decluttering and maybe I should clean their rooms for them. And I tell my friends and my husband this and my kids this, I could do all these things, but I don't want to. We all make the mess. We are a family. And isn't that a beautiful thing that we can work as a team to clean this house up together? And anyway, I kind of digress there, but yes, expected mess is
I'm going to tell
a whole
you know
separate
what?
piece.
Every future roommate of your children is thanking you right now. As somebody who like had an extremely slobby roommate in college and had to we had to have an intervention and had to tell her like, girl, you got to find somewhere else to live. We can't do this anymore. Like I felt terrible having that situation happen, but it had to happen. And so I'm telling you right now, every single future roommate of your children is thanking you right now.
But I'm also seeing too, Katie, like what a powerful thing to show your kids for the future. Like mom could stand up and be like, no, I don't want to do this. And having that be a totally okay thing to actually act on your desires and act on your wants and appreciate them. And I want to hear like what other tips you have for people right after this.
When it comes to raising kids, there's so much to consider. Things like, what do we feed them? When do we feed them? How do they sleep? What does it look like to raise kind kids? How does their nervous system work? How do I keep myself calm? What are my triggers? There's so much that comes into play, and we are distilling all of that information for you at Voices of Your Village podcast, where we bring experts in the field of early childhood and education and psychology and across the board so that you don't have to comb the internet for information. You get to show up and hang out and have shame-free, judgment-free conversations and insights into what it looks like to raise kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent humans. I'm Alyssa Blask Campbell. I have a master's degree in early childhood education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am walking this journey right alongside you doing this work. Come hang out with me at Voices of Your Village, and we can dive into real conversations with actionable tips.
I'm Margaret.
And I'm Amy.
And together we host the podcast, What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood.
Margaret, I would say you're sort of a where are my keys kind of mom.
Correct. Sometimes a where are my kids kind of mom. Well, you're, Amy, more of a we were supposed to leave 35 seconds ago, mom.
I mean, touche. In each episode of What Fresh Hell, we come at a topic from our usually completely opposite perspectives. I bring the research.
And I bring kind of the gimlet eye. Like, is that research really going to work, people?
And almost 10 million downloads later, we're still laughing.
We also talk to experts in the parenting field, plus parents with stories we can all learn from.
We make each other laugh, we challenge each other's assumptions, and we have what we think is the best parenting community on the internet.
Check out What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood wherever you listen to podcasts.
So we have dug into so much guilt, so much shame that comes with decluttering, and also talking about there's this expected mess to happen that can have so much joy and loveliness within it. What else do you recommend, Katie, for people who are like, oh my gosh, I just want this to be, as you say, like not a tidy home, but an easy to tidy home?
So, two things. Expected mess isn't handled by decluttering that stuff, right? Expected mess out, again, dirty dishes, clothes that are worn that need, these are cyclical contributions we'll be doing until we're no longer on this earth. So what I teach my students on how we handle that issue, because it can still be annoying and feel like drudgery, I get, are we solve that with systems and habits. So one of my favorite systems to keep expected mess to a minimum and not have it grow and get overwhelming and we get triggered and turn into She-Hulk, or at least I'm speaking for myself.
Oh,
I don't like
I like
when all
She-Hulk.
that
That was a
stuff
good
grows.
show. Yeah.
been there.
With the emotions and everything, and she could keep them under control, unlike Hulk, because women have practice with that. But go ahead. I digress.
One of my favorite systems to manage expected mass is by doing resets. And this is where you reset the space back to its baseline tidiness level. And so we do these a lot innately and organically. After we have dinner, typically we clean up the kitchen at the end of the night after a meal.
Okay.
But I would encourage you and your listeners to go around your home and look at different spots that bother you or trigger you with a small t or a capital T, it doesn't matter. And go, you know what, could this spot benefit from a daily reset? Maybe spots like entryways, common gathering spots, kitchen islands, kitchen tables. Typically it's some type of surface area, but it can be very compelling and invigorating and motivating to have that one spot during your day where it's 30 seconds, 60 seconds, where you just tidy up, put stuff back where it belongs. And it just feels good. Speaking to what we talked about right when we started talking, right? Our environments influence us for better or for worse. And when I come down the stairs in the morning, if I did nothing else the night before, if it was a really tough day, I know I at least reset my kitchen and I can come down to my little coffee bar and it's clear and I have my little favorite mug. And it's like the best way to start my day, right? And these little things can really make a big impact in how we show up as a human being. So resets have been awesome.
I've had a little bit of a light bulb, Katie, as you're talking, because we're having this issue with our kitchen right now where we delegate our chores. And if I cook dinner, my husband's supposed to clean the dishes and my kids are supposed to unload the dishwasher. However, like we all get so busy and they get overwhelmed and I get overwhelmed where we go through doing the bare minimum during the week. And so it just piles up during the week. Like we don't leave food out. We make sure the food's put away, that sort of thing.
Addie helps with that.
Addie, yeah, my dog. But it becomes this mess. So much so, like I am avoiding the kitchen at the end of the week. I don't want to deal with it because there is that mess available in the kitchen. And what I hear you saying is I'm like, oh my gosh, we could do a daily reset right after dinner where it isn't just one person's job to do their job. It's like we set the timer for 5 minutes. Okay, let's have everyone go through. Let's wipe down all the counters. Let's get everything off of the counter. Let's put away those dishes and just all together. And that thing could be done in 5 minutes instead of all the hassle that's like throughout the whole week. So I like this daily reset idea. I'm going to try this tonight. I'm going to let you know how it goes.
Yes, please do. I mean, you can do in a spot like that, definitely daily. I mean, if you're home all day, if you homeschool or home with the kids or whatever, maybe multiple times in certain locations can be really fruitful. And then it doesn't also have to be daily. For example, I have a small walk-in closet. So I reset that once a week because again, the idea is we aren't perfect. Sometimes we grab a shirt, change our mind, and we toss it down instead of hanging it back up. So you're taking seconds and a few minutes each week or each day or however you want to do these to reset the space. And it really prevents so much overwhelm, procrastination, emotions, stressors we don't want to feel. So really that's tool one. And that's your expected mass should be pretty well taken care of with that in most cases. And then you have true clutter, right? The excess, the unused, the broken, the unwanted, like all the things that are hiding in plain sight or in drawers or closets within your home. Again, I want to reiterate, the solution isn't to procrastinate, although we want to. It's not to, get some new bins. It's to let go. And a big thing I learned on my journey again, and this is where all the checklists, they stopped working for me. It was like step 1, take everything out of the drawer. Step 2, if you haven't used it for 6 months, put it back, put it in your donate bin. And I'd be like, well, what if I need that in the future? That
big
costs
one.
$20. Oh, well, what
Exactly.
if my kid decides in 2 months he wants to start using this color marker, even though, and I'm like, so I wouldn't get rid of anything.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is so me. Exactly. I'm like, oh, but I
Yes.
might. I might
An
need it.
extra layer on that is this is particularly common in ADHD, like people who have ADHD, and like my dad has it, my sister has it, I have it, they have it more, but they don't want to get rid of things because the memories are attached to them and they're afraid they will forget the memories if they get rid of the actual item. And so it's such an interesting thing that you say about letting go because it's so emotionally charged, letting go of things.
And Joanne, you hit the nail on the head, right? Because now when we're facing this stuff, it's not just stuff because we've assigned meaning to it. And by the way, I want to share, you can pass this along to your family. There have been at least one study was done, maybe multiple at this point, that suggested that when you take a picture with an item that you would consider sentimental, right? I don't know, a pillow or whatever, that thing, then that reduces it's a psychological concept called loss aversion. And that's essentially our brain doesn't want to feel like it's losing. And, the identity loss. Who am I? Am I going without this thing? Or am I going to forget this memory without this thing? And when people took a picture holding the item, they were much, much more likely to be able to donate the item, pass it along to someone who was going to use it, all those things. So I know it sounds trivial, like I'll really take a picture, but the study suggests that it really, really can help for those people who consider themselves, sentimentally attached.
They were
good to
both
know.
very like scientifically minded, so I will look for that study and I'll send it to them, and that will probably help them out.
Yes. Right. But even just there, I listed 2 or 3 different psychological factors that a checklist doesn't really help you overcome.
Yeah.
And so going back to the long-term sustainability of decluttering, we're taught we just need one weekend and we can do a marathon declutter and we can wipe our hands and be good. But we all know the clutter builds the other 364 days of the year. So there's this sustainability portion where it's just like habits. And so again, I was a busy mom. I worked 60 hours a week. I had 2 kids under 2. Just because my why was now big enough to declutter, I was like, well, where am I going to find the time? Because all the checklists say I need to pull the whole pantry out and do it all at once. And I couldn't find these elusive 6-hour time slots very often.
And what do you do when you pull it all out? And then immediately that motivation just goes, boop, and you're like, oh, crap.
Or
Now I
what would
just
happen to
need,
me
like, a
is
bigger
the baby
mess.
would wake up from his nap like 2 hours early. And I was like, now my house is going to be even more of a disaster because I started this huge project, flipped my house upside down. So I just ultimately came up with clutter audits. This was going to help solve that clutter issue. So clutter audits are essentially micro declutter sessions that take seconds to minutes, and you attach them to these normal household routines, chores, and how you move about your household, right? And you just simply take time to identify 1 or 2 things. And it was really hard for me in the beginning because, again, perfectionist, I want to do it once, I want to do it right, or I don't want to try, I don't want to do it at all. So it feels very uncomfortable for those of us who have that all or nothing mentality, which is also pushed really hard in this niche. But for example, when I was unloading the dishwasher in the morning, I would reach to the back before I put, the fresh coffee mugs in front and put those away. I'd be like, oh, there's some sippy cups that are half melted back there. I can get rid of those. I don't need 18 water bottles anymore. I can get rid of,
Yeah.
I did that recently with all the water bottles we have.
Okay. Is that
so
an
many.
everywhere thing, or is that just I thought that was an Arizona thing. That's an everywhere thing.
No.
Like,
Yeah, you think in the desert, you at least have an excuse. Y'all are thirsty. It is everywhere. There's so many water bottles. It's too
We
much.
have our Big Dumb cups that SNL skit. Oh my gosh, it's so true for everywhere.
you have your water bottle, and then you have your backup water bottle because no matter how old your kids are, they are going to forget them somewhere. So yeah. Or like me, I go kayaking and then I lose them in the river.
No, you need a little
I like
Velcro thing. We'll figure it out.
do.
We'll make sure you don't
Yes.
lose anymore.
Yeah. Put all the water
So-
down.
I like that idea of a clutter audit though,
Yes.
just going through when you see them instead of making it this one big process that you
Yes.
put off and put off. That's an awesome thing to have. I need to remember that more in my daily life, I think, because we do get into that all or nothing mentality to
Yeah.
think that we need to put aside this big amount of time to get it done when really it's the constant small actions that make a difference in our lives. And I find that fascinating. Katy, what do you have coming up for you that you're excited about? And you gave us a little hit, which is very exciting.
Yeah, so we're knee deep into summer, depending on when you and your kids finish up summer for the school year. But summer can be, I would say, traditionally tricky for a lot of parents and caregivers, right? We're like, oh, we think we're going to have all this time and we have all these great goals. I'm going to teach my kid how to clean their room and we're going to finally tackle our garage and get the clutter
Which
out.
does
And then
not
it's
sound like a fun summer, by the way.
it doesn't, but then the summer's gone, right? Because we get, there's this funness about summer. Yes, we'll go to the pool party. Yes, we'll take a road trip. Yeah. And then, like, all of a sudden the garage is even worse than it was
Yep.
before. And clutter for so many of us tends to get more overwhelming partially because of lack of routine, right? Our kids are home. So inside one of my memberships called the Clutter Cure Club, I was so excited about this. I worked with a lot of my students on this. I created a series of what I call Summer Simplicity Sprints, which I love the alliteration there. And these are quick, engaging, decluttering tasks, again, tailored specifically for the summer season and a lot of spaces in our homes that tend to get out of control or are more likely to get out of control in the summer. And they're designed to take just 10 to 20 minutes for the week. So some of my students will do it in one go. Some of them will do like 2 minutes here, 30 seconds here, however it works into their busy summer schedule. And the beauty of it is it allows them to make really significant progress without being overwhelming, right? When that overwhelm hits, procrastination is right along there with it, right? They're best friends. And these sprints are really designed not only on like physical clutter, but mental, digital spaces that tend to get in the way of having a more fun and relaxing summer with our kids, and ultimately help my students create a more serene, peaceful, easy to tidy home environment.
That
Yeah.
sounds awesome. We'll have a link to everywhere people can reach you in the show notes. And Katy, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us these simple ways that we do not have to have the all or nothing mentality and we could do little things along the way. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm already thinking like I should probably look up that study for my sister and my dad and send it to them. Although since my sister, when we're recording this, is very pregnant right now, I don't know how much she'll appreciate it.
Right now, she's going to be like, that is another damn thing for me to add to my list. I think not.
It might actually be a distraction. I mean, she is very concentrated on this. So maybe if she like has a distraction of just going around and taking pictures of herself with her stuff, it'll take her out of her mind for a little bit of asking, when is this baby going to get out of me?
I will be honest. They talk about how you don't remember, you lose some of the memory of childbirth. So that way you're willing to do it again.
Yeah.
And having a 15, almost 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, I'm like, I don't remember much about any of this other than just being sweaty and big. That's the
Yeah.
only thing I remember about
I feel
having
like I
my
remember
kids.
everything. But I had C-sections and they were planned. And it was, yeah, I knew I wasn't ever going to go through it again. And I remember everything about my sister's first birth. And I'm so happy for my C-sections after watching that. Because I'm like, I am really glad I didn't have to go through that. I'm not missing that at all. Watching her birth was really healing for me because I felt like I got gypped out of a natural birth the second time too, because both my kids were breech.
Yeah.
And watching that birth, I'm like, this is really cool to see someone else go through this.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do this. It's really painful.
Only thing I remember is that I was not like, again, my oldest sister, I would call her a lot because she had already had 3 kids by the time I had my first. And I would call her for advice. I'm like, is this normal? Is that normal? Yada, yada, yada. And she'd be like, you know what, Brie? Some people enjoy being pregnant. I just think you're not one of those people. And I'm like, I think you're
I'm
right.
not one of those.
Oh, I
Yeah.
hated it. Like, I mean, I loved my kids. I loved my kids. And I was on bed rest for almost the entire pregnancy with my son. So I was willing to do whatever. But yeah, I do not miss those days. I would not be like, oh, yay, I get to go through it again. Oh, hails to the no. Oh, hails to the
like,
no.
It's an interesting thing because now that my kids are getting older, like just today, I was talking logistics with my husband, and I'm gonna go down to Tucson tomorrow, and
Mhm.
he's, oh well, I have to pick up like our daughter from school, and I'm like, no, like she can get her own ride. She's a high schooler. She's
Yeah.
sophomore. She knows enough people who drive, and
We
we
know that
actually
she's got
have.
some good friends that drive. Yeah.
Yeah, we also
Yeah.
have, like, another family who she's friends with who lives in the neighborhood who pick up their daughter and could
Mhm.
bring her back easily, and it just made me think, "Oh my gosh, this whole kids getting older is so much easier." Like, I'm not the one coordinating with the parents about like, "Hey, can you pick up my daughter today? And do you have time?" Like, that's not happening anymore, and I'm feeling I'm getting so much of my brain back that it's just an amazing and wonderful thing, and
Wait, you're
I
decluttering your brain? What?
Yes. But it's like what you said right there, like, you came in when you said you hated being pregnant, you're like, "I love my kids," and I feel like that is so interesting that we as women feel we need to do that because I absolutely love my kids, and yet, oh my gosh, I'm loving that they're older and that I no longer have to be 100% responsible, that they could take this over too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like you have to make sure repeatedly that you say that you're grateful. I'm grateful. I
Yeah,
love
dads
them.
don't
I'm
have to do
grateful.
that. Dads could just be
I
like, "Woohoo! They could
know.
do this themselves," and nobody thinks anything of them.
I
And
don't
yet
get
if
it.
women talk about that, they're like, "Aren't you grateful you have children? You should be so lucky you have" I'm like, "Yeah, I
I
love
am.
them just as much as their dad loves them."
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Ugh,
It's crazy.
society. There's
Well,
so much societal
I
stuff.
am looking forward to trying some of Katie's tips
Yes.
for keeping my house clean this summer because like I said, summer is awful for me. I mean, I know that she has the youngers, the 7 and the 9, and I've got the, again, like 16, 17, but they make just as much of a mess. Except for the fact, like, I would say the shoes. She talked about like just not putting your shoes away. Oh, that is such a problem in our household because everybody's got big feet now. Shoes are
I current
huge and they're
I currently
everywhere.
have 2 sets of shoes under my desk, and they are both mine. So, I'm like
They're big, they're huge, and they smell. Teenage feet smell.
put some little odorators in them. That's a
Oh my God. You can tell what's
Straighter.
irritating Brie right now. A ton.
Well, it's funny
So
because we got our carpets cleaned the other day, and the house smells different. Like it smells like the cleaner. And my daughter comes in, and she's like, "What's up with the house, Mom?" Like, I don't like it. It smells bad. I'm like, and that's clean. So it's like
yeah.
dogs when they have to put their scent on everything. I think like human children are like this too.
I think
Their scent's
so.
missing from everything.
I do think so. I think so.
It's funny. Well, until next time, remember the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, are you a parent of a teenager? Are you feeling overwhelmed about how to be what they need while also holding limits and boundaries that keep them safe? Are you tired of conversations that negate how messy this season of parenting is? Well, I've got you. My name is Casey O'Rourke. I am a positive discipline trainer, parent coach, and the host of the Joyful Courage podcast. Every week, I come to you with an interview digging into tough topics with experts I trust and solo shows that go deep into the personal growth and mindset needed to raise teens in a way that grows them into confident, capable young people. I am not afraid of getting real about the intersection of conscious parenting and the teen years, while also bringing in vulnerability, humor, and lightness. I'm walking the path with you and honored to serve. Listen to Joyful Courage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts.